Previously on our podcast.
Our guest is Bernard Mackenzie. He's actually a manager at the NIE Wellness Centre. Recently, we actually had a very, very big abuse case.
So I think these are some signs that as a community we need to look out for.
Why do we suddenly sound so defensive? Back then, in my time when I was actually in school, we used to have public caning.
The views, opinions and statements expressed by guests on Not Your Old Uncle podcast are theirs alone and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Authentic Legacy Media.
So as adults, I think that we also need to have a certain amount of understanding about why these particular things are going on. Yeah, I think that recently another one that really hit the heart was Ian Fang. I think he was actually convicted of having
sexual grooming along that line. I think.
Having sex with a minor. Right. So we need to actually have a better awareness of what actually constitutes abuse, especially sexual abuse, right?
Absolutely. And most of this sexual abuse kind of situation could start off as sexual grooming first.
What's sexual grooming?
Okay, sexual grooming is basically you are grooming a particular young person to be your sexual partner as once they reach a certain age, right? So you're basically
Can you give an example?
It could be like grooming them to giving them that attention and personal texts and sexualized texts and showing them that interest that and because assuming here as a teenager they're very impressionable. Right, and giving them that attention and so on and so forth, and almost having that love relationship, that love-like relationship.
Right. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do actually watch a lot of drama series as well. So I actually do understand that sometimes you have like football coaches or like certain coaches and your athletes, and they try to actually sort of get a little bit hands on with their person that they're actually working with, and that actually sorts of get them into a place of which they are not. It's an ambiguous space.
Yeah, it's a very ambiguous place
that you're not very sure whether this is proper or not proper.
Absolutely.
Right. And actually most of such stuff starts from there. So once something that actually goes on that I'm not very sure of as a child, what's the first thing I should do?
Bring it up to your parents. Bring it up to your parents. You see, the moment that you're not comfortable, I think it's only fair that you bring it up to your parents, your at least a close family member. Parents say, I am actually not comfortable. Because you see, for an example, if you're doing certain sports and you can have an injury, and the coach might not be having these thoughts at the back of their head. Right. They could be like, okay, you're injured, let me lift you up. Right. Or let me, maybe try to massage your leg or something like that. Right. And it could purely be coming from a place of professional work. Right. Because of an injury and so on and so forth. But if the athlete or the child is not comfortable with that, then it's only fair that it's being brought up. Right. So the adult can have this conversation. Hey, it was brought up to me. So I'm having this conversation with you. I'm not accusing you. So even if the person has that ill intent, at least the person will be aware that, okay, this person tells.
And that's a very, very fair comment, because I think that nowadays, from my personal experience and what I've seen, a lot of parents actually also just jump into it.
Yeah. So I would say that have that conversation. Have the conversation with the coach or the athlete or the teacher. Say, hey, no, this is what's happening.
So allow the other party to actually have a fair chance to actually voice out. Which, of course, if it is an abuse situation, they still probably wouldn't tell you.
They wouldn't tell, but at least on the other end, they will back off. Because they know that, hey, this child tells the parents. Right? It's not comfortable, tell the parents. Right? And then it probably might end there.
If it doesn't end there as a child.
Okay. This is going back to during my experience in working in one of the particular school where there was a coach who was working with the I think both the boys and the girls team, but interestingly was sending some sexualized messages to a particular athlete.
Right.
Right. And this was apparently going on for a bit. Being naughty over here, young teenage girl, very impressionable. Coach seems to be the best thing that happened to her, right? In the sense that, wow, somebody who's giving me the attention, right? So nobody gives me attention, and somebody gives me, and it feels good, right? It feels good. So they were not in a relationship, but it was like this ambiguous space that you're talking about,
Right?
Right. And eventually, not sure how it came about, right? We're not sure how it came about. So then when it came out, we had to do the investigation. We talked to her, and then we realized that it was inappropriate because it's almost, very loosely using the words over here, it's almost like some level of sexual grooming was on the onset.
Right.
Right, what's happening. So immediate actions was taken from the school to immediately get rid of the coach. Right.
So that's a very, very good example that actually we can't really prevent such cases from going on all the time, no matter what sort of best practice that we put into our HR. Sometimes there will be such cases that actually go through.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if it really does happen, there are actually systems that actually in place
Yeah.
on MOE side to actually deal with such situation. And what the parents actually have to do is to actually make sure that the particular system starts kicking in.
Absolutely. So if nobody says, then nobody will know.
Right.
Nobody will know. So in such a situation, bring it up. Have a conversation with the coach. I mean, if it's a school level kind of coach, bring it up to the school and let the school do the required investigation.
Right.
And if there's really a case of sexual grooming, example, then let the school do the necessary.
If in a situation of which that I'm a parent and I'm like a little bit concerned that the school is going to cover it up. Okay.
So see this is going to be really tough, because if you really feel that the school is going to cover, I wouldn't think that most schools will do that. I think most schools will, because schools have their protocols to do the necessary. Because eventually, again, unless I stand corrected, I think the primary objective of the Ministry of Education, that's MOE, the central focus is always students' well-being. Right. So putting the students it's definitely student-centric, right? And because it's student-centric, the focus is on the student and to protect the student.
Right.
And if there's a coach that's coming from outside, or even, being naughty, even if it's an educator who is behaving inappropriately, I think schools will take the necessary action. If the teacher needs to be removed, then I think they would remove.
What I understand from about sexual abuse and everything, sometimes there's actually also some repercussions that's going on. So for example, like the victim, sometimes they actually might end up actually feeling a little bit withdrawn. That's one of the signs that you actually mentioned. But other than withdrawn, sometimes the degree of which the depression actually sets in, or the seriousness of the particular situation can vary. So are there any other signs other than just withdrawing that we might find as a really telling sign?
Okay. I think generally, this probably goes back to probably parents.
Right.
It's quite a tough role to play as parents in this time and age. Parents to know their kid, especially when they behave abnormally. Assuming here, if let's say your child is generally a very quiet kid, right, mind your own business, doesn't do a lot of other stuff, suddenly becomes very loud, becomes very talkative, becomes very disruptive, or a child who doesn't go out that much and suddenly breaks all possible rules and going just all over the place, to me that's a telltale sign. Right? The child is acting out of normal. Right? For an example, if the child, like I mentioned earlier, if the child is generally a kid who hands up all the work, no missing work kind of thing, quite a diligent student individual. Suddenly you're receiving calls from the school. The teachers are saying that, oh, not submitting homework, something's happening, what's happening? To me, that's a red flag.
What about the dressing wise?
Oh,
Dressing too little, dressing too much?
It really, okay, dressing is a tough conversation, right? Especially in this time and age, a lot of things are fashion, right?
Right.
Yeah. Sometimes it's super tight. This is regardless gender over here. Yeah. So I mean,
but what about sudden changes in terms of their dressing?
Absolutely, even sudden changes in their dressing. It's something to be curious about. Like what is this change coming about? Right.
So it sounds like it's actually a compilation of a lot of different signs.
Right. Especially that it doesn't have to be like what we mentioned, right? In the textbook, like suddenly very withdrawn, it's an abnormal behavior. You don't see your child doing this every other day.
So for example, like if all of a sudden you're wearing skimpily, that's an automatic sign that any parent picks up.
Yeah.
But if they actually start to cover up a lot, that's also another interesting one.
Absolutely.
Because we have actually seen cases reported before of something called self-harm.
Absolutely.
What exactly is self-harm?
Okay. Today when we talk about it from a general perspective, self-harm is people cutting themselves and whatnot. So in some contexts, and in some literature, they call it as parasuicide. So it's not a suicide. It's not committing suicide or attempting suicide, but it's para. So it's almost quite similar.
They're playing with the boundary.
With the boundary. So it's para, just like like a medic and a paramedic, like a doctor and a paramedic, or a nurse and a paramedic kind of thing, right? So it could be cutting. I think we need to give credit where it's due. The reason because our teenagers are very smart. Definitely a lot smarter than us, because some of them don't cut in places that you and I can see. Such as over here.
Oh.
Because they're wearing shirt, you can't see. Or they can cut at the thigh area. But you can't see. You get what I mean? So if we go back with that perspective that, okay, so if they're covering up on their hand, that means they are only cutting over here. No, it doesn't happen anymore. Okay, those people so even in cutting, this is
why do they actually want to cut?
Okay. I always ask this question of the reason, what makes them to cut. And the general answer, if I were to compile all the replies that I've got with the teenagers that I've worked with, because the pain here is excruciating, that this pain doesn't mean anything. So when I cut myself, assuming I'm cutting my hand, right, it doesn't mean anything. When I see the blood flowing out, it's almost this pain is flowing out. So
it's a little bit cathartic to them.
Absolutely. It's a little bit cathartic to them. And what I have observed about people who cut, even the way they cut says a lot about their mental state. For an example, somebody who cuts a little and then they bandage it up, it's definitely a call for attention. They want not very loosely using the word attention. I think I would rephrase that. I think is asking for help.
Right.
But they want to get that attention. Suddenly bandage up. So people will ask, hey, why you bandage up? What happened? So they want to have that conversation. They want to talk about it. So it's a call for help.
Right.
Another group cuts very randomly. So there's no pattern or nothing, just very random cuts. That is probably when they are going through a lot at the back of their head, don't know what to do, and then just randomly just cutting.
So they're just trying to get rid of whatever is going, like letting it overshadow.
Absolutely. So it's like, just cut anyhow.
Right.
That's the way I look at it. The other group, the one that I always found it a little more dangerous, because they are cuts out. The gaps are almost, the intervals are almost identical. Very even, and then they're cutting it deeper and deeper and deeper. So those are the group that I'm a little more worried about. I'm not saying the other two I don't worry about. I think I worry as well, but I think this group I worry a lot because there's a lot of intent at the back of their head. There's a lot of intent. There's a lot of thought processes that's already gone through, and it's a very clear it's a very clear decision of this is what I want to do.
But regardless of whatever the card looks like, it is all something that requires our attention.
Absolutely.
Right.
And so that is it's coming from a place of pain.
Right. So that could actually also be a telltale sign of abuse or something which is going
something they are struggling with.
Right.
Why go fast? Some individuals, regardless of age over here, might even find solace in alcohol. Very loosely using the word solace over here, in the sense that they might just find alcohol and that leads to alcohol dependency, right? And that leads to addiction, right? So it could be drugs, it could be alcohol, because it becomes an escape avenue as well.
And I think nowadays for teenagers, the other one that is actually a little bit more accessible of sorts is actually vaping.
Yeah, which is legally it's an unlawful thing, lah. You can get arrested and everything.
Basically, it's illegal.
Yeah, it's illegal, but it's somehow very accessible.
Yes.
Right? It's almost seen as lesser of the evil, but no, it's actually a lot more damaging. Right? So they find this as an escape.
Yeah, so vaping and smoking all of a sudden is actually also another sign.
Correct. So also it's a sudden change of behavior, right? They used to be like that and suddenly they change. So what's really happening?
Of course, what we understand from child abuse is that sometimes it can be even more complicated. Yeah. So if we're actually talking about typical intervention for child abuse, we won't be able to say that there's a real success case. Most of the time, we won't see the ending of saying that this is going to stop and this is going to end up in court or something like that. And even if it ends up in court, it might still carry on somewhere else in other ways, other forms. So what can you share about intervention for child abuse and maybe give our audience a little bit of idea as to what sort of intervention we could possibly see happen?
Okay. Maybe I actually have a case that I worked with in mind as you talked about child abuse, right? So this was during my work in a particular school. So I didn't start off knowing this child had a child abuse case, right? So it was... in fact, incidentally, I was quite a relatively new counselor for that school at that point of time. And one fine day, I was just in my office, and then my head calls me and he said, "Hey, there's this particular case. It was just already known to MSF and so on and so forth. So now MSF has brought in the child and the parent. The MSF officer said, can you just take over the case?" So the case that I have no head or tail. Right. And no clue.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but asked to go in, right? So cannot say no to your boss, isn't it? So.
Well, you were my boss before, so I can't say much.
I've always given an option to say no, I think. So I went in. So I went in and then started with the case. And so that's when I'm having this whole revelation of like, oh, whoa, like what happened, right?
Right.
Like there was a child abuse case because mother was very harsh punishments and so on and so forth. So it was going on. It's like, oh, okay. So then subsequently when the girl came back to school, it was a female student. So when the girl came to school, then I was seeing her on a weekly session for counseling and see how it was going and everything. And in the process, I also had a chance to build kind of a relationship with the parent I was working with. So there's always a common communication. Like whatever that's happening in the child's life, the mom updates me, oh no, her behavior this way, that way. So it kind of had the communication as a counselor. So I was able to work with both the parent and the child.
Right.
And I still remember this was like in an evening, and I was like out with my life partner in Macpherson. I still remember it was Macpherson, and we were like, oh, just going to have satay and some good food, you know. And then I received this call from the mother, and it was like my handphone. So that's like a super emergency, right? Because quite a number of the kids had my number. So it was only they call me if there's an emergency.
Right.
Yeah. She called me, and the next thing the mom is just screaming at me. And they're like, oh, this girl, this has happened, da 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 da. Then I was like, so being an atypical counselor and just listen, yes, tell me more, and it went on for a good 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, I think she couldn't be angry anymore, so she started calming down. And one of the statements that she said, when she comes back home, I'm going to whack her. So the moment she said that, I knew there's a huge potential that it's going to be another abuse case.
Right.
So I told her, ma'am, I said, you know what? Thank you for sharing that, because now, should anything happen, now I have no choice but to call MSF. So I'm not telling you to do it, but I'm telling you that should it happen, unfortunately, you're forcing my hand to pick up that call, to call MSF, and then we have to go through this whole circus again.
Right.
And then she calmed down. She said, okay, so Benz, what do I do now? So I said, okay, don't do anything. All right. I said, I know you are upset. I know you're angry. You're disappointed that you gave her a curfew. She's breached a curfew.
Right.
I said, I agree with that. As a parent, I know where you're coming from.
Right.
Don't do anything. Let her come back home the time she should come back home. Talk about it tomorrow. Then she was like, okay. So next day, I think by then, the climate changed next day. Calm down a bit. So the mother just told the girl, you know what, I'm not happy. So it became quite smooth, right? So when she came back to school, I asked her, I said, hey, what happened? She said, oh, this thing happened. I said, yeah, your mom called me and told me what's happening. Right. So in a way, I think that was a success because we prevented a possible child abuse situation.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a very, very good place to end. And that is that actually a lot of times that when it comes to interventions and when it comes to counseling and a lot of things that we do with our students and parents, we are not able to control every single factor.
Yeah, absolutely right.
But sometimes when we actually do make a change in one particular link out of the entire chain of link, it actually creates a domino effect.
Absolutely.
And sometimes something positive will come out of this.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not an ideal situation that every time something good happens,
right?
But at least we know that we probably have prevented something worse off.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I hope that was useful for everybody. So hope to see you guys next episode of the Not Your Old Uncle podcast. And my name is Alvin. Thank you for having us today. Goodbye. Do you like our podcast so far? Do remember to like, share, and subscribe.
In our next episode.
欢迎我们今天的来宾 Carl， 我们想要了解多一点有关同性恋跟宗教的问题。
是我觉得我们自己是不是同性，我们的知觉其实一直都在，只是我们那时候不知道他是同性。如果出了这本书的话，我会影响一些比较年轻的一些信徒变得更 gay 啊，你懂？你现在是 gay 也是因为你前世的因果不好嘛。